From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Hi, I'm Celeste Lawson, Recording Studio Director at NLS in Washington, D.C. In this video, I will cover narration techniques. The following remarks, while directed to fellow studio directors, may be of some interest to anyone involved in the field of narration. The goal of narration is to translate the written word in a way that is as consistent as possible with the intent of the author. The narrator should skillfully convey the sense of the text to the listener. The art of narration can be taught only to the extent of giving guidelines and techniques to one who has a talent for it. If talent is present, it can be enhanced. But if talent is not present, it cannot be taught. The process of becoming a skilled narrator is a long one. They say it takes 3 years, and the process involves practice and more practice. There is little else in our lives that require these particular muscles to be flexed. Aside from reading aloud to our kids, who don't care if we have word burgers or swallow in mid-sentence, we do not, as a rule, spend much time reading aloud, certainly not for extended periods of time. Even very good actors of stage and film may find it difficult to sustain their energy in telling a story in a small room with nothing but a microphone. So, what makes a good narrator? Important attributes of the voice with respect to narration are quality, strength, and stamina. Clarity and control are necessary components. A fabulous voice is nice, but it is not as desirable as an interesting voice. Being limited to one pleasant-sounding vocal quality can become tiresome to the listener. Knowledge of how to effectively generate, modulate, and manipulate the voice are as important as the vocal quality itself. A huge plus is freedom from characteristics which might become distracting with repetition, like a tick on an intake of breath. Relentless repetition of any vocal quality can become distracting, such as always ending sentences with a downward or an upward inflection, or a lip smack before the beginning of every sentence. Like a dripping faucet, the listener starts to be attuned only to the distraction and loses track of the story. Vocal strength is necessary so that the recording level doesn't have to be pumped up so much that every extraneous sound is captured. And the narrator's stamina must be sufficient for the voice to sustain for the duration of a recording session with no audible tiring and with no audible degradation in narration effectiveness. However, the single most important requirement for a narrator is a great ear. That is what helps the narrator reproduce the rhythms of foreign accents and languages, discerns the subtleties of the mother tongue, and keeps dialogue natural and believable. Listening to the voices in life of friends, strangers, people on TV, all add to the narrator's toolbox. Listening to other narrators and choosing what to emulate and what to avoid is invaluable. And the really difficult one, listening to one's own narration for at least a half an hour without the print copy. Ask your narrators to judge how they would feel if someone started talking to them like that. Is it stiff and stilted, bizarrely eccentric, or energetic and committed? Are the transitions from narrative to dialogue and back again clear? Are the different characters clear? What about the changes in scene, mood, subject, time frame, etc.? The audition process for finding narrators to work in your studio should be at least twofold. Applicants should submit demo recordings of fiction and nonfiction, usually about 5 minutes long each. This gives them an opportunity to practice the material and show themselves off to their best advantage. Then call them into your studio for a cold read to see how they handle material that they have never seen before and that may not be completely suited to them. Give them a good 15 minutes to look over the material. Don't rush them. Make sure they are ready to go, and let them know that if they are not happy with the way they did something, they can stop and redo it. You will then have samples of their narration under various circumstances and can assess how they approach telling a story. How does a narrator prepare to read a book? I would suggest that you encourage your narrators to read the entire book before going into the booth to record. Get it into their brain. As they read it, they should jot down any words they are uncertain of how to pronounce. An innate love of and curiosity about language will serve a narrator well in this part of the job. They should write down anything. Street names, foreign phrases, slang, restaurants, all are grist for the mill. And they should check out the book's index. Then they should start researching, using dictionaries, encyclopedias, gazetteers, but above all these days, the internet. The internet makes it possible to contact authors about how they want their sci-fi characters' names pronounced. Narrators can go on Forvo and hear foreign names, places, and phrases pronounced by native speakers. They can go on YouTube and hear author interviews wherein they say their own names, presumably correctly. Then, the big important step, all the pronunciations must be written out phonetically with copies for the monitor and reviewer. We often misremember when we are in the heat of the moment, and we need another set of eyes and ears to ensure that we are saying the terms the way we intended to say them. How does one keep narration alive and avoid being boring? Don't become a generic voice without a person. It is well-intentioned to say, I don't want to intrude upon the text, or I don't want to get between the author and the listener. But it blands out the narration to the point that it is unlistenable. Simply stringing words together with clarity will not cut it. The narrator must bring his or her own life experience, opinions, anger, sarcasm, passion, and humor, especially humor, into the booth. Making no decision about how to approach a book makes for a flat, uninvolved, deadly read. The narrator must bring as much vitality and interest in the topic as the author. And there will be the occasional book they hate, written by an author they detest, on a subject which bores them to death. In the unfortunate case of such a mismatch, it is incumbent on the narrator to fake sincerity and fascination. It has been said that a good book requires a good narrator, and a bad book requires a great narrator. The narrator needs to have faith in their audience, that they understand English, that they have read a book before, and that they have listened to a recorded book before, and, unless it is a children's book, that they are not children. So the delivery does not have to be very slow and painstaking in order not to confuse them. Every comma or quotation mark does not need to be honored with a pause you could drive a truck through. The sentence, Steven Soderbergh next directed Ocean's 11, starring George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Andy Garcia, Julia Roberts, Matt Damon, Bernie Mac, Elliot Gould, and Don Cheadle, read as Steven Soderbergh next directed Ocean's 11, starring George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Andy Garcia, Julia Roberts, Matt Damon, Bernie Mac, Elliot Gould, and Don Cheadle, kind of makes you want to smack the narrator. Every double-letter combination, Andrews Sisters, Black Kilts, Summer Rain, doesn't have to be artificially separated. The Andrews sisters wore black kilts to celebrate the summer rain. In real life, we allied them. Listeners are no strangers to conversational speech. They hear it every day. They use it every day. We all know how human speech sounds. Narrators are storytellers, not diction teachers. But does telling the story mean that the narrator needs to be a vocal contortionist? Does all the male dialogue that a female narrator voices need to be boomed in her absolute lowest register? And do all the women voiced by a male narrator need to be pitched up in a falsetto? Does the narrator need to have a distinct and distinctive voice for every schmo who enters the story? Distinguishing characters is important and necessary for clarity, but can be done with attitude and without overdoing it or taxing the narrator's voice, so that the listener becomes involved with the quirky vocal choice and loses the thread of the story. Recording a book would seem to be a pretty straightforward endeavor, but a number of complications can and do get in the way. Finally, though, it all comes down to one basic premise. Tell me a story. Tell the one the author wrote, the way the author wrote it. For more information about selecting volunteer narrators, assigning books, or improving narrator techniques, email me at claw@loc.gov. That's CLAW@loc.gov.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.